Hi everyone, I am PJ, the GM of Edge of Legend, and this is what you missed on Nightmare of Doltonshire, Episode 2. The Compass Rose are now a total of 12 members, as 4 are lost to the horde of the hungry in Doltonshire Bay. Laszlo, Puko, Lucinda, and Amren make their way to the city main. Panting, crying, and going numb from exhaustion, they find the Espichibi family. Harold, with an eye patch, Carol, with her fan, and their children, Gerald and Marigold. They are a stoic but caring family of means and wealth. They offer the Compass Rose and their survivors a place to stay for the night and a carriage out of town first thing in the morning. However, Harold, Carol, Gerald, and Marigold have to leave as they prepare for family matters. Being on their own, the Compass Rose splits up to complete their mission to learn more about this city and its secrets. Laszlo, still with only 1 HP and in dire need of healing, follows Puko in looking for supplies. However, all of the parts of the town that would give supplies seem to be closed. And upon further investigation, they find that the tavern, or the Home and Hearth Tavern, may have some said supplies. Lucinda and Amran break off to investigate the city and learn more about it. In the meantime, they choose to speak to the hard-working folk and head off to the foundry. At the foundry, Lucinda and Amran meet a dwarf seemingly alone, working into a fury by the forge. When they greet him, his head snaps at them, his eyes wide. He yells at them, screaming what they could want for interrupting him. Attempting to calm him down, Amran asks for a doorknob to be made. This slowly calms the dwarf down, who needs the dimensions, as his anger begins to rise up again. Their conversation goes back and forth, but the dwarf can't be calmed, and eventually he loses his mind in a fit of violent rage. He tries to grab Amren, but he loses his grip, and with a frantic swing of his hammer, he knocks Lucinda out cold. Amren attempts to dazzle and distract the dwarf with a hex, and in the moments available, she grabs Lucinda and runs. As she leaves, the foundry comes alive with many dwarves breaking from the shadows, screaming and chasing them out as they proceed to shout and cry, "We have to keep the fire lit." Meanwhile, at the Home and Hearth Tavern, Laszlo and Puko look into meeting the locals, learning some of the lore and enjoying some potions and potables. The tavern is a very charming atmosphere, though it seems to be in odd spirits, like a fist clenched in silence, a powder keg of quiet. The Compass Rose asks for supplies and drinks, and talking to the bartender and other patrons yields little response. The local drunk moves and then trips, sending their drink flying into the air. Laszlo dodges the ale, but not Puko, and as the sticky beer dries on her tengu feathers, she begins to feel a terrible anger, something foreign and unnecessary, but powerful, a deep hate-filled for this person that spilled the ale, a deeply personal hatred. As Puko can feel her body moving with rage, yet it feels like another person's body in the tavern is moving with her. She seems to be called John, as she can feel this man descend upon the drunk and begin to beat them bloody. The bartender looks at Puko, screaming, "Damn it, John, if you're gonna kill him, take him outside." Puko watches as John drags the drunk outside, and from behind closed doors she can hear John stomping the drunk as the patrons jump to life, screaming for blood, telling John to use the curb. When she snaps back from the vision, she sees John sitting at the bar, quiet, tired, panting, covered in blood. Laszlo nervously asks for the potions, but they only seem to get a few bandages, and they both leave, shaken from the horrible rage of the tavern. The two groups meet again in the streets, disturbed and perturbed by what they experienced. Eventually, the group decides to investigate the town hall to discover more secrets, finding only a long destroyed and torn apart interior. Candle seems lit at the end of the hall. The group nervously asks Amren to go investigate, and she does, casting spark with a snap of her fingers to illuminate this dark hallway. She sees words carved into the hallway walls. Carve the knife. Why are we so cold? I just want to freeze. Eventually, she enters a destroyed room with the words, "It's fine," carved in them, and immediately receives a vision from the perspective of a former mayor. A mob descends into her room and throws her desk across it, dragging a body that she identifies as her oldest son. She fights them off, exclaiming, "I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to fix it all." But they attack her as the rage makes everything go dark. As the hands of the mob smothers the light of her vision, she hears one last haunting phrase whispered in her ear. "It's fine." She comes back from the nightmare. She sees the body of the oldest son stapled to the wall. As he's hanging there, his head snaps up suddenly. Two mouths now stretch across his face, his eyes nothing but chunks of coal, and both of his mouths open wide and scream in agony. They cry in terrible anger and pain. And with that, Amren learns the name of the candle of hate that burns in the city main. The group takes one more stop after this to the complaint registry. There, the Compass Rose sees a large collection of townsfolk in lines, screaming at clerks who sit on tiny stools, their spines creaking and bending under the weight of the abuse and vitriol that these townsfolk spew at them. They sit, these clerks, behind steel bars for their protection against the townsfolk at the complaint registry. It's almost impossible for anyone to move anywhere or get a word in edgewise. Puko, the Tengu sorceress, magically creates her voice to be a loud speaker that tries to deceive the townsfolk into leaving. Their collected anger turns on Puko in a red-hot wave of entitled fury. As they scream at her, they transport her into a dark space of the mind where the ghosts of hatred tie her to a chair and scream their demands unending. Puko tries to speak. No voice will come out. They proceed to scream about what they deserve as they rip at her feathers, rip off the badges of her uniform, and begin to tear her arms, tendons from her shoulders. She snaps back from this horrible collected wraiths of wrath to see the lines have not changed, and the clerks are still being abused. Amren is tired of this town and of how they are being treated, so she decides to start a riot. She summons her snake familiar, Onri, that she has now covered in oil and soot from the foundry. She lights it on fire in a way so that poor Onri will not be harmed, and then she hurls the snake to the front of the line. The snake, all too excited for this, shouts, "Vive la nuit! Long live the riot!" It works like a charm as the townfolk run out screaming from the registry. Once they survive the stampede of people leaving, they ask the clerks questions about the town and what information they can get. The clerks seem really tired and apologetic. Amran sees above them this bronze plaque of a face with two mouths, screaming in pain, and eyes of chiseled coal. It's at this moment she leans over to the clerk and speaks the eldritch name, Urhogask. The clerk, upon hearing this name, bursts into flames, his body alight. He doesn't seem to feel the pain, only slight panic. Amren sees this clerk on fire, continuing to do their best to give service to these people, and in an act of mercy, she slits his throat. As the clerk falls on fire, blood pouring from his throat, his last words are, "Thank you for coming in today. It was a pleasure to service you." As they all leave the complaint registry, they make their way back to the main row of the city main. There they see a candlelight has been popping up in their peripheral, and it's been doing so the entire time while they were in town. Soon the candlelight flickers and grows, and in a blink, standing before them is the man on fire. A man standing engulfed in flame with their eyes staring at the Compass Rose, standing calmly while their body bubbles and boils. The townsfolk, as if by summons, step out of their house and apartments and enter the city street. There they begin to convulse in rage as their eyes melt from their sockets and screams come from their mouth as hard coal produced deep within their sockets. When the pain and the corruption settles, the town stands behind the man on fire, and they begin to scream in one voice. His voice. As the fire rolls up his body, the man of fire's eyes widen as the town screams in his throat. "Entitled interlopers." And without warning, the man on fire sprints at them, the whole town running behind him. A few spells are sent to the man on fire, but not much success. Seeing the unstoppable hate coming their way like a freight train, the Compass Rose retreats quickly. The man on fire screams a torrent of flame. Some are able to dodge the flame, but others take the heat and faint licks of pain. Laszlo's nanny retaliates with an eldritch fury. Lucinda takes her rapier and slices through the man as he crumbles and melts to the floor, a dead, charred memory. One of the townspeople bursts into a fountain of gore as the man on fire breaks from the body and begins running unimpeded to the Compass Rose. And the chase is on. The town chases the Compass Rose down the street, hurling gouts of flame. Eventually, the Compass Rose finds himself back at the Espiciabes. One by one, they burst into the home to escape the mob. The family panics and realizes they must hide the Compass Rose but can't decide where, until a body breaks and crashes through the front window. And as they slowly rise, their body covered in shards of glass, eventually they are struck down, and struck again, and again, and again, by the youngest son, Gerald. He strikes the body a few more times, trying to put it down for good, but puts too many strikes. One too much. Eventually, young Gerald begins to lose track of his breath. He begins swearing and cursing with great hate. He grips at his throat as hard as he can in vain to stop the blood from pumping to his throat, to finally silence these horrible things that he's saying. But the words cannot stop. He's crying, apologizing as his face turns to bright red and his tears dry on his terrified cheeks. Harold rages at the sight of this as he rips off his eye patch, exposing a gruesome eye riddled with mutation that seems to somehow swing open like a door. He shouts to his wife and daughter, "Get them downstairs! Kurhokasek! You shall not have my son!" And he lunges to free his son from this madness. Harold and Marigold lead the Compass Rose to the basement, but they can't leave their family alone. They rip off chunks of wood from the railing, and they go back upstairs to fight. The Compass Rose is now in the basement at the Espiciabes house. The room is entirely stone with no windows or furnishings save a simple desk. The walls are covered in ancient eldritch symbols, as is the floor, the massive symbol, and old writing, all in blood. Standing in the middle of the symbol is a door. Standing up in the center like a monolith, the door stands with a threshold, a doorknob, nothing behind it, and nothing in front of it. One by one, the Compass Rose walks through the door, Lucinda stopping to take some of the papers off the desk, and speaks up to the gods to let her daughters know she will miss them and that she did her best. As they walk into the door seems to close behind them. They vanish as the doorknob clicks and locks. A voice can be heard. "Are you ready for the unknown?" And that is how we ended episode 2 of Nightmare of Doltonshire. Where do they go? Who will survive the labyrinth of doors? And what really hides behind them in the unknown? Tune in Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to twitch.tv/Nat20 Productions Official to find out. And join us in the chat where we can become legends together and survive together. As always, looking forward to it. I'll see you then, and happy Halloween.